This is a Fox News Alert. I'm Brett Baer in Washington. There could be a major development in the already tense relationship between President Obama and Israel's leadership. Chief White House correspondent Ed Henry joins us tonight from the North Lawn with the full story. Hi, Ed.
Good evening, Brett. When I pressed Josh Earnest today, he left the door wide open to the possibility of the U.S. issuing sanctions against Israel over settlement activity. Now, privately, I'm hearing this would not be similar to the kinds of tough sanctions that have been leveled against the economies of Russia and Iran, perhaps sanctions that would be more symbolic, trying to get Israel's attention. But obviously, it would still be unprecedented and could make an already tense relationship with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu even worse after I asked Earnest to deny reports out of Israel that these sanctions are on the table. Listen.
We believe that settlements are illegitimate, and we have deep concerns about highly contentious planning and construction activities that the Israeli government is pursuing in East Jerusalem and the West Bank.
Now, Earnest would not deny the sanctions are on the table. He added that none of this is affecting the U.S. support for Israel's defense. But Republican Senator Kelly Ayotte called this whole idea absurd, adding, quote, protecting the national security interests of the United States requires strategic and moral clarity and an ability to distinguish between friends and adversaries. We should not confuse Israel, our closest and most reliable ally in the Mideast, with an adversary that needs to be pressured or coerced. All of this coming, this tension, just hours after the president tried to steady his national security team. After already burning through 3 defense secretaries, President Obama had trouble landing a new one. So as he unveiled Ashton Carter as his nominee, the president alluded to how hard it was to sign someone up to deal with so many national security crises.
Ash is a big Motown fan. And one of his favorites is a classic by the Four Tops, Reach Out, I'll Be There. So, Ash, I'm reaching out to you. You have been there for us, our troops.
One person not there today, outgoing Pentagon Chief Chuck Hagel, even though White House officials were expecting him. Hagel aides tried to downplay any tension by saying he wanted the spotlight to be on Carter, who moved quickly to try and prove he'll be his own man.
I pledge to you my most candid strategic advice. And I pledge also that you will receive equally candid military advice.
Though Carter has no military experience, many Republicans today praised his civilian service at the Pentagon, even as they raised sharp questions about whether he'll be steamrolled by White House aides like Susan Rice, who clashed with Hagel.
If you go through 4 secretaries of defense, or 3 in 6 years, maybe you ought to be looking at yourself instead of the secretaries.
The stakes for the next secretary could not be higher, as the president met today with Jordan's King Abdullah, who has likened the struggle against ISIS to World War III.
We recognize it's a long-term and extremely complex challenge.
Retired generals say the president has curtailed the power of his defense secretaries, 2 of whom wrote books critical of his leadership, though there are high hopes for Carter.
I think what the senior uniform leaders are hoping is that because of how he operates, because of his thoughtfulness and the power of his mind, that he will be more persuasive with the White House technocrats.
There may be yet another crisis brewing as officials left the door open to U.S. sanctions against Israel over settlements.
So very clearly you're not denying that sanctions are on the table against even an ally.
I'm very clearly not denying that we have strong concerns about settlement activity that's underway in Israel.
Now, I pressed Earnest on why the U.S. may sanction an ally in Israel while the president is demanding Congress not issue more sanctions against Iran. He said the administration has previously been tough on Iran and is not going to detail its private conversations about what it might do to Israel. Brett?
And after that briefing, so far, no response from the Israelis.
We reached out to the Israeli embassy. It was already closed here in D.C. We've been trying to reach out to the Israeli government. They've previously said in recent days in the Israeli media that they're picking up reports that U.S. officials were having classified meetings recently discussing this possibility of sanctions. The government not happy about it.
The briefing was telling. Ed, thank you.
Good to see you.
A publication that is avowedly liberal is admitting tonight that it was anything but fair and balanced in its expose about gang rape at the University of Virginia. And in doing so, Rolling Stone admits breaking one of the cardinal rules of journalism, getting both sides of the story. Correspondent Doug McKelway tells us what happened.
The statement from Rolling Stone reads in part, quote, "In the face of new information, there now appears to be discrepancies in Jackie's account, and we have come to the conclusion that our trust in her was misplaced. We were trying to be sensitive to the unfair shame and humiliation many women feel after a sexual assault, and now regret the decision to not contact the alleged assaulters to get their account." Rolling Stone's expose, authored by Sabrina Rubin Erdely, alleges that an 18-year-old University of Virginia freshman they called Jackie was gang raped at a 2012 Phi Kappa Psi fraternity party. It tells how her date, whom they called Drew, took Jackie up to his room to talk. In the pitch darkness, she was thrown over a glass table which shattered. 7 men took turns raping her on shards of glass. When she left, wearing a bloody dress, friends decided not to take her to the hospital lest her reputation be, quote, shot for the next 4 years. Since the story was published last month, there have been protests and acts of vandalism at the fraternity. UVA President Teresa Sullivan suspended all fraternities. Charlottesville police are investigating. The reporter Erdely, in what she says was an attempt to protect Jackie, did not interview any of the alleged rapists, even though she knew the ringleader, Drew, to be a lifeguard at the campus pool.
Whenever you're using anonymous sources, and almost everyone in this story is anonymous, the perpetrator, the victim is anonymous, they're using pseudonyms, it's incumbent upon you to go the extra mile to make sure you contact the people whom you're accusing of a terrible, terrible crime.
Late today, the Phi Kappa Psi chapter at UVA responded, quote, "We have no knowledge of these alleged acts being committed at our house or by our members." The statement also said it found no record of any frat member being a lifeguard at the pool that year. There was no party at the frat house on the date alleged, and the pledge ceremony reported to have happened that autumn day actually occurred in the spring.
I think survivors of false accusations also require some attention.
Much as the Duke lacrosse rape hoax did, the Rolling Stone story appears to be unraveling bit by bit, damaging legitimate concern about the real problem of campus sexual assault. Brett?
Doug, thank you. A possible presidential contender is a little further off the hook tonight from what could have been a crippling political scandal. But critics are quick to point out it's not over. Senior correspondent Eric Shawn reports tonight on New Jersey Governor Chris Christie and Bridgegate.
It has imperiled his potential presidential hopes and tainted his tenure as governor of New Jersey. But a report on the George Washington Bridge Lane closings could not pin the blame on Governor Chris Christie. The 136-page interim report from the joint New Jersey Senate and Assembly Investigative Legislative Committee found, quote, no conclusive evidence Christie was aware of the plan. Quote, the committee is not in a position currently to conclude what Governor Christie himself knew about the lane closures or when and how his knowledge of these events developed. Democratic Assemblyman John Wisniewski, co-chair of the committee, would not say if the findings exonerate the governor.
That we don't have enough information because we've not been able to interview everybody about what the governor did or didn't know, or about what the governor did or didn't authorize.
I had no knowledge of this, of the planning, the execution, or anything about it.
Christie has always denied he knew of the scheme, ordered by close aide Bridget Ann Kelly, who wrote the now infamous email, "Time for some traffic problems in Fort Lee." But the investigators raised questions about the reactions of some of Christie's top officials, including his current chief of staff, Regina Agia. They want to know more about her texts to and from the governor during the committee's testimony last December. Texts, it says, both she and Christie deleted. But Republican committee member, Assemblyman John Brannick, says the findings clear Christie.
So far, a year has gone by, and the Democrats haven't found any evidence whatsoever, and they say that in this report, anything that Chris Christie did wrong at the time these lanes were closed. I don't know how much more money you want to spend to prove that he did nothing.
The report is not the final word on the controversy. While legislators vow to press on, the U.S. Attorney's Office is continuing its federal investigation. But there is no word on when that will wrap up. Brett?
We'll follow it. Eric, thank you. The woman who most believe will be the next Democratic nominee is calling for America to ease up a bit on the people who want to destroy it. Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton continues her speaking tour and has again said something raising eyebrows. Chief Washington correspondent James Rosen has that story tonight.
You can easily lose touch with, what's real, what's authentic. who you were before you raised your hand and were sworn into office.
Hillary Clinton has been thinking hard about the presidency, even as she waits till next year to announce whether she'll seek the job, as most observers expect she will. That expectation, along with the absence thus far of any well-positioned challengers, has created around the former Secretary of State an aura of inevitability as the Democratic nominee.
That's great.
The steamroller effect is helping Clinton lock down contributors and campaign staff, but inevitability also generates some unwelcome side effects, such as creating, in a party that has grown increasingly liberal, a hunger for a candidate less hawkish and less chummy with Wall Street and Walmart.
Inevitability is both a blessing and arguably a curse. Voters at this point are looking for change, what President Obama called a new car feel. They want something different.
She doesn't have a compelling rationale for her candidacy. She doesn't have a compelling rationale to be President of the United States beyond the fact that she'd be the first woman, or, well, she got screwed last time, so it's her turn.
What's more, Mrs. Clinton's campaign appearances this fall and her rocky book rollout in the spring.
We came out of the White House not only dead broke, but in debt.
Have left some Clinton watchers uneasy about her skills as a candidate, a problem long in evidence, but perhaps made worse by Clinton's last job and by the prospect that she might cruise to her party's nomination without robust competition. This week brought still another comment that exposed Clinton to criticism.
This is what we call smart power, leaving no one on the sidelines, showing respect even for one's enemies, trying to understand and, insofar as psychologically possible, empathize with their perspective and point of view.
I've seen very little improvement in the candidate skills. If anything, having been Secretary of State, a position where you're treated as a potentate, she may have gotten worse. It's tough to go back to rope lines after you've been with kings and queens.
Liberals preferred ABH, anyone but Hillary, is populist Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts. But Warren says she has no plans to run. Only former Senator Jim Webb of Virginia, the Republican-turned-Democrat who served as Ronald Reagan's Navy Secretary and later opposed the Iraq War, has formed an exploratory committee. Brett?
James, thank you. Up next, will there be more protests tonight across the country over the death of Eric Garner in New York? First, here's what some of our Fox affiliates around the country are covering tonight. WTIC in Hartford, Connecticut, where police are increasing patrols after reports of thieves stealing packages right off doorsteps. Take a look at this video. Authorities have responded to 4 such calls so far. They're warning residents to take steps to prevent these thefts, such as having packages left with a neighbor. Fox 25 in Boston with the extradition of a Chinese national accused of exporting parts to Iran that could be used to make nuclear weapons. The suspect was transported from London, where he was arrested in February. He faces decades in prison if convicted. And this is a live look at Tampa Bay, the setting sun. You can't really see Tampa that much, but Fox 13's there. The big story there tonight, an homage to Satan on display in Florida's State House this holiday season. An angel falling into hell with the message, "Happy Holidays" from the Satanic Temple, has been approved to sit alongside traditional religious and secular decorations. That's tonight's live look outside the Beltway. From Special Report, we'll be right back.